Hey, it's Harris with another video. In this video, I'm going to talk about what it was like to recover from depersonalization disorder and just my experience from being in a state of having deep depersonalization and going through it and then coming out on the other side. First I'll just kind of start with talking about having depersonalization. I had depersonalization for a few years, and I got it through smoking marijuana. And for the longest time, I just kind of thought that it was caused by weed, and I didn't really take seriously what I'd read about the childhood causes of it, the emotional abuse causes of it. I didn't really take that stuff seriously, so I just was kind of going along. I had the disorder, and I felt completely cut off. I felt numb. I was constantly ruminating about existence, freaking out about every existential possibility, and I also had a lot of panic attacks. Worrying about my health, worrying about my heart or my lungs, or afraid that I had some bodily problem. I was engaged in that hyper-intellectualization of existential rumination, and I had that hypersomaticization that's so common in depersonalization, which is really indicative of the mind-body split. So finally, when I really started to recover is when I realized it was the emotional issues in the middle that were the key to recovering, and that these come from our childhood circumstances, our family situation. And it's what it's really about. It's about re-owning those painful emotions of guilt, of shame, of just not feeling like you're worth much, worthlessness. And what we do in depersonalization is we push these emotions out of our mind to protect ourselves. And that's why our mind and our body feels split off. Okay? So we push them out because they're painful. So the cure to depersonalization, the remedy, is to actually bring those emotions back into our mind and consciously process them. Okay, we have to allow ourselves to feel emotions that we haven't allowed ourselves to feel in the past, that we pushed out. And actually, it can dredge up a lot of really negative old feelings when you're doing this, when you are integrating trauma into your conscious mind, when you are processing this feeling of guilt that was likely passed down from your parents. Okay, so these emotions get passed down generation to generation. I call it the intergenerational transmission of trauma. And when you face these emotions, it's a therapeutic process, but a lot of therapeutic processes involve pain. There is some healthy pain involved in overcoming depersonalization. And sometimes while doing this, while going through this process of self-discovery and re-owning elements of myself that I had disowned, it was hard. And allowing yourself to feel again it can be kind of strange, because when you read online on the internet about people with depersonalization, rarely do you actually read people talk about dealing with emotions, because they're still dissociating, right? And it felt strange, it felt painful at times. There were a lot of rough days, actually, going through it, and I read a ton of books. Everything that I put into the program that I ended up creating on it, I had to go through this whole process. I basically had to totally reassess my entire life, the way I thought about my family, the way I thought about myself, the way I felt. I had to totally reprocess my emotions. And when I finally kind of got a handle on my life, and especially a handle on my emotional life, I finally snapped out of depersonalization and derealization, and I felt that sense of crispness again. It's like you could call it sensory integration, where you touch things and you feel real again. Your sense of agency when you're moving and when you're talking and when you're doing things, you feel like you're actually doing them. That comes back. And I guess, a metaphor you could use, it's almost like coming through a waterfall, where like you're in a cave and there's a waterfall in front of you. You can kind of see light coming through. You can kind of see images on the other side. You can kind of see things, and then you come through the waterfall and everything is just crisp again. You feel like your old self again, and it's bizarre. I guess feeling normal is almost like feeling bizarre. And honestly, it's fucking awesome. It's fucking awesome to feel normal, which most people on this planet take for granted. They take for granted, just feeling normal. So it was really, the path to getting there, though, had some bumps. There were some bumps on the road. It's not easy to re-own the emotions that you have pushed out of your mind to protect yourself. Depersonalization exists for a reason, because there's pain. There's pain there that you're pushing out of your mind. But it felt just amazing, of course. But having said that, I still have plenty of issues to work on. I'm still the same person. I think people with depersonalization do have a sensitive temperament. Okay, and what I mean by that is they're sensitive to over arousal. Okay, they're easy to be over aroused by too much stimuli. So you constantly have to engage in self-care. But when you go through this emotional recovery process of depersonalization, you start developing the tools to take care of your own emotions. You're not denying your own emotions anymore. You're really checking in, and you kind of have more self-care intelligence, let's say. But I can't do the same things that a lot of quote unquote normal people can do. If I drink a bunch of alcohol and go out partying, that hangover the next morning is going to be freaking terrible. Terrible. Alcohol is just something that I have to stay away from. Same thing, marijuana, never going to touch that shit again. I don't care. I just don't care. There's just certain things that you really shouldn't do anyway once you overcome depersonalization. And once I've overcome it, I still have to watch out. I'm still like a highly sensitive person, or whatever you want to call it. Some people call that empath or whatever. But the depersonalization is gone, and it does feel great. It really does, and you really can do it. But like I said, the big barrier to recovery is really denial and not wanting to go through the discomfort of processing these emotions. So, I hope that video kind of helps. I just kind of wanted to describe just sort of the feeling of recovering from depersonalization, and you absolutely can do it. if you look at all the articles and things I've written, I mean, you can check out my depersonalization cure tip series. I really go into this in depth. I talk about trauma. I talk about the childhood issues. I just put out a video yesterday on, really kind of explaining the origins of depersonalization. But it's an emotional process, where you really need to re-own the feelings you have not allowed yourself to feel, and it can be painful. But coming through the other side is so worth it. So, as always, take care and stay tuned for more videos.